Magic the Gathering has changed. Just a few years ago, you had sets with maybe 5 legends in them, and now you have sets with 33 legends in them. Now you've got uncommon commanders, you've got commanders that are great in non-commander formats but are actually terrible commanders, you've got commanders that do completely unique things, and you've got commanders that do the exact same thing as every other commander in their colors, so it gets overwhelming pretty quick. So at least for the newest set, Kaldheim, we're going to go through every potential commander in this set, all 33. And we're going to rank them from very worst to very best. They really don't make terrible legends like they used to, because even though Sigrid's at the very bottom of this list, she still has her applications. There's 35 gods running around that she has protection from. Her sitting in the command zone, threatening to hop out at any second and exile a creature can dissuade opponents from attacking or blocking, but the truth is being in your command zone gets rid of the surprise factor. Ultimately, she's just kind of too low impact to be a very powerful or interesting commander, although she does have her uses, which is a lot more than we can say for some old bad legends. Okay, what do you even do with that? So Inga's not bad, but it's just kind of a boring value commander, and not that much value at that. Inga's good as kind of some sort of wrath protection. If somebody blows up the board, you probably get to draw cards, and you could also try to build some kind of blue sacrifice deck around her, which would be pretty unique. But even then, 4 mana to, in the best case, draw 3 isn't the greatest payoff. It's just, there's just not enough going on with Inga to build something interesting. There's some combos you can do with Maya, like Perilous Forays letting you search out a bunch of basics, so if you feel like playing a green-white, go-white commander, then play Riss, Miri, and Shalai because they're just way better. There are way better blue-black zombie commanders than Narfi, and there's at least one better snow commander. But if you really wanted to play snow zombies in specific, well, you found your commander. Boros has done the whole equipment and aura thing before and has just frankly done it way better than Cole. But Cole does allow you to sneak some infinite damage combos into your equipment deck. So hey, if you love playing Voltron but you feel like your table just doesn't hate you quite enough, you can play Combo Voltron. Imagine being power crept before you ever even got released. That's what life is like for Herald. If there's one thing Commander players hate doing, it's paying taxes on their effects. Paying 1 extra mana to target you or your stuff might as well say that everything you have has hexproof, because nobody's going to pay that shit. Kolvore's a new god who fits snugly into the role of a mono-green Legends commander, where she's instantly outclassed by Reki. Spell is pretty good as a budget Golos if you don't want to pay out for a 5-color mana base, but nothing special. So where you most typically see poison counters in Magic is from Infect. And the problem with Infect is that it scales with power, and I think that makes a lot of people just not like the mechanic, because it's just kind of too easy to get hit by a 10 power Infect thing out of nowhere, you know, by a Blightsteel Colossus or some little Infect Dork with a big pump spell, and I think a lot of people just feel like it's kind of a cheap way to die. But Finn actually finds a way to make poison counters fun by kind of sucking. A death-touching creature is always going to give you 2 poison counters with him out. So there's always kind of a set thing to expect, and your opponent knows the risk, and after hitting your opponents once, you can kind of grind them out with stuff like Proliferate. So if you want to play poison and still have friends, I think Finn's actually a great option. So to level with you guys, Furia would have gotten a pretty high spot on this list just based on her art alone. That shit is metal. But even outside of that, Furia has some really interesting deck building restrictions. Trying to double spell with her every turn means you're going to be casting a lot of low CMC cards, or cards that let you cast them for cheaper in some way. And also her ability can activate on your opponent's turns too. So you'll probably be playing a lot of low CMC instants, which will make Furia decks even more unique and give you a great excuse to play it when even though you're really just playing it for the art. A 3/3 just doesn't really cut it in Commander, but what about a 4-mana copy of your Malignus and just kills your opponent on the spot? Arnie's pretty good. So there's a better Dwarf Tribal Commander out there already, but there's not a better Sacrifice 5 treasures to tutor any artifact or dragon directly onto the battlefield commander, so in that sense Magda's pretty unique. Magda's focus on treasure, dwarves, dragons, and weirdo cards that let you tap and untap her means she's probably going to be a pretty unique commander forever. So I said Inga was a really boring mono-blue commander that just drew you some cards, so why would Auron be so much higher? Well, because he kind of sucks. To draw cards with Auron, you have to name a specific card type, so like enchantment, instant, creature, land, and that puts some interesting restrictions on how you want to build your Auron deck. You want most of the cards in your deck to be of the same type, so maybe even some cool like mono-blue lands deck, where you name lands with Auron and you're always guaranteed to draw 2 cards. It would probably suck horribly, but also it'd probably be pretty cool. Agar is the perfect commander for a brand new tribal deck to come out of Kaldheim. That's right, you know what I'm talking about. Red, blue, giant damage spells. Cards like Chain Reactions, cards like Blasphemous Act, all of these are going to be just turbocharged by Aegar and let you draw a ton of cards in addition to wiping away your opponent's creatures, and I guess you can throw some giants in there too. Pick your best permanents, a creature, an artifact, hell, a land if you feel like it. Now you have 2. Thanks, Marit. What if your commander was a boat? So Varaggoth's pretty high on this list because you can search stuff out of your deck repeatedly, especially if you give them a way to be unblockable. But let's be real. Nobody likes shuffling 100 card decks. Nobody likes watching other people shuffle 100 card decks. Don't play Varaggoth. Sometimes it's fun to be the arch enemy. Sometimes it's fun to have all your opponents just hate you and want to keep your commander off the battlefield because it keeps eating their whole board every single turn, and that's Serolf. Serolf does a great job of scaling up with multiple opponents too, where one-on-one you might get the occasional free counter on him when your opponent cracks a fetch land or whatever, but when you have 3 opponents, this guy's just going to be eating their breakfast every single turn. So if you got a Death Wish, Serolf's your guy. Eska's just a fantastic new commander. On her front half, she gives you great multicolor ramp, especially in a Legends Matter deck, and her back half makes sure you never run out of gas in the late game. I was gonna make a double rainbow joke here, but you know what, it's 2021, let's just move on. If you want to play a snow deck, I think Jorn Snow is the commander. Sultai Snow is effectively a brand new archetype that Jorn enables, and he's going to be fantastic at it. That said, I don't really like Snow, so Jorn gets a relatively low spot on the list. Orvar is that really great combination of having an effect we know is good based on cards like Zada and Feather, but doing it in a really unique and, in my opinion, a much cooler way. You can copy any permanent, a creature, an enchantment, an artifact, whatever, as long as you target it with a spell, and that's completely unexplored territory for deck building. And most importantly, Orvar is blue, which just makes him better than Zada and Feather by default. Edric is one of the most played and most powerful Simic commanders, and Toski I think is just better than him. You do lose access to blue, but green can do anything anyway, so who cares? Birja's another god that's just great on both sides. Her front half makes 1-mana spells essentially free, which can just let you go for some crazy storm strategy, and if you just need card advantage instead, her back half is great for that. I guess you can say that Burgalicious definition is value. So Vega's obviously designed with a foretell mechanic in mind, but there are so many mechanics from Magic's history that let you cast cards from places other than your hand. There's Flashback, there's Suspend, Jumpstart, Cascade, Escape, Adventure, Madness, Rebound, Ripple I guess, but not really in Commander, Aftermath, Impulse Draw effects, cards that let you cast stuff from the graveyard, cards that let you cast stuff from the deck, cards that let you cast stuff from other people's graveyards, cards that let you cast your opponent's cards, recursion effects, Mind Desire, Urza, and above all, this guy. So I'm like 99% sure they plucked Carter out of a Commander set and just plopped him in Kaldheim, because Carter has an ability called Goad that they really love to use in Commander sets because it's really great in 4-player games and not so great in 1-on-1 games. But I understand, what are they going to do, just have 32 Commanders in a set? I mean, come on. Egon has the unique distinction of being one of the very few Commanders in the game that's actually 1 mana to cast. You're always going to be able to cast your chair on turn 1, and Egon's just going to be setting up your graveyard for the rest of the game past that. And as an additional hidden benefit, when you get your Egon altered to look like a Ghostbuster, it'll still be pretty on theme. Perhaps the greatest innovation that Kaldheim brings to Magic is the ability for inanimate objects to now be your commander. And out of those inanimate objects, I think this sword is probably the best. It's an equipment you can cast out of your command zone, it's very cheap to play and equip, and a very impactful card that gives you a lot of recursion. Also, there's a front half too, I guess. Being completely broken in regular Magic aside, Valky's also a fantastic commander. Early in the game, he can be Disruption to snipe some creatures out of your opponent's hand, and he sort of demands to be killed because he can eventually turn himself into those powerful creatures. And then later in the game, you can play him for his Planeswalker half, and he's actually one of the few Planeswalkers that's actually fantastic in Commander. More likely, though, you'll see him in the 99 of a bunch of Cascade decks where he will just absolutely wreak havoc, until Wizard makes enough money from Kaldheim where they'll change the rules for Cascade. Verdant Force eats your heart out. Coma is insane. If you want to have a commander that's just nigh unbeatable by itself, go ahead and pick Coma. It's one of the more powerful commanders you can just cast and just take over the game by itself, with not much build around required. His name may be Coma, but you're not going to want to sleep on this. Okay, I'll stop. I'm sorry. Toralf takes this new concept of excess damage and really pushes it to a competitive level. There's all sorts of ways to take advantage of splashing around this excess damage, with cards like Chandra's Incinerator allowing you to blow up your opponent's creatures, hit them in the face, blow up their creatures, hit them in the face, and just kill the entire board in one big turn. And Toralf's Hammer lets you do the whole boomerang hammer thing, just like Thor's Mjolnir. So to the one guy out there whose favorite Marvel character is Thor, congrats buddy, you made it. So Tergrid not only has an ugly-ass name, she's probably my favorite commander out of the set. If you play Tergrid followed up by an effect that makes your opponents discard all their cards, there's just no telling how much stuff you'll cheat onto the battlefield. She's got a really cool, unique effect, is a very powerful commander, and is just completely blown out of the water by number 1 on this list. To probably not that much surprise, Vorinclex Monstrous Raider is number 1 on the list. Vorinclex not only doubles up +1/+1 counters, but any kind of counters. So Planeswalkers come in with double counters, they can immediately be ultimated. Charge counters get doubled up, just any kind of counter you can imagine, Vorinclex doubles. The ability to take away half of your opponent's counters can a lot of times just really devastate some decks, especially if they're putting on 1 counter at a time. That just means they put on 0 counters instead. So if you want the best bang for your buck, Vorinclex Monstrous Raider has to be the absolute best. Oh my god, he's $35. You know what, just go with Tergrid. Tergrid's fine.